Chapter number 2, New Kingdoms and Life of People between 750 to 1200 CE. Firstly, new dynasties in northern, central and western India. The independent rulers of the small kingdoms, those who were the leaders of the empire, but slowly, with the passage of time, slowly, they broke up with the empire and they gained more land and they built their own large armies. They broke away from the empire and became independent rulers. Some of these rulers claimed to be the descendants of Kshatriya kings of ancient India, and some others said they belonged from the Pandavas of the Maharashtra. They called themselves Rajputs or Rajputras, that is the sons of Rajput kings. They claimed their origin from three clans, namely Suryavanshi, Chandravanshi and Agnivanshis. However, historians have different views about the origin of the Rajputs. Some historians said the origin of the Rajput is from the Central Asian tribes such as Shakas and Hunas. There are some other major dynasties which ruled over most of the northern, central and western India, and these dynasties were Gurjara Pratihara, Chauhans, Solankis, Chandelas, Parmaras, Palas and Rashtrakutas. The Pratiharas were also known as Gurjara Pratihara. They were among the most powerful Rajput clans. They called themselves Suryavanshi and they had a symbol of the rising sun. The Palas, the Palas ruled over Bengal, the parts of Bihar and Nepal from the middle of the 8th century to the middle of the 9th century. Gopala is their most powerful and the first king of the Pala dynasty. And the Rashtrakutas ruled on Deccan area over large part of that territory, and their empire included almost all the modern Karnataka, the place that is now in Karnataka, Maharashtra and some parts of Andhra Pradesh. The first Rashtrakuta ruler was Danti Durga, and he was also known as the Lord of the Badami Chalukya. He took control of Maharashtra and established a Rashtrakuta empire. About these we will read in more detail more in further next class. Next is the tripartite struggle. Tripartite means the struggle that was among three different dynasties or three different groups, that is Gujara Pratihara, Palas and Rashtrakutas. This struggle was for the control of the Kannauj, means on that time Kannauj was an important center of trade and commerce, and it was located between the Doab region. Whosoever controlled Kannauj, that king will control the fertile Gangetic plain. It became the center of the power and the center of the struggle among these three dynasties. All the three dynasties want to control the whole area of Kannauj under their rule. Thus, constant wars were fought among these three dynasties to gain control over the Kannauj. However, none of them could gain complete control over that region, but constant wars to gain their power over Kannauj weakened these three dynasties. There were several other rulers who also wanted to rule over the areas of northern, central and western India in the medieval period, but after the advent of Muslims, the Salankis, those who were Agnikur Rajputs, they were the descendant of Badami Chalukya in Karnataka and Maharashtra, the Chandelas, the Gujara Patiharas and later they all became independent and called themselves Chandravanshis. The Tomars also claimed to be Chandravanshi Rajputs. In Delhi, it was established as a center of their capital in 1736 CE by the first Tomar king Anangpal Singh Tomar. The Chauhans were the Agnivanshi Rajputs. They ruled northern and western India. They were the soldiers of Bujara Pratihara dynasty. The most famous Chauhan king was Prithviraj Chauhan, and he was also known as Prithviraj III. Next is the military structure and administration of these kingdoms. The Rajput kings always appointed Rajput soldiers in their army. They adopted many titles like Maharaja Dhiraja, Tribhuvana Chakravarti, and so on. The kings also kept a personal army. However, when they need more army, when in the in the situation of war, they need more army, then the small leaders of the small clans, they help them by providing them additional soldiers, and the vessels also paid taxes to their kings. And next is the administration. It is as followed. It is written over here. The kingdom was divided into bhuktis, or we can say provinces. The whole kingdom was divided into states, and it was headed, it was controlled by Prantpati or Upkarika Bhoj. The head of the province was called Prantpati or Upkarika Bhoj. Then further, each bhukti, each province was further divided into districts or Vaishyas, and the district head of the district was called Vaishyapati. And further, the districts were divided into nagars or cities. Each nagar or city, they formed a samiti which worked for the welfare of the people, those who live in the cities. Then these cities were further divided into gramas or village, and the head of the village or the gram is called gramapati or gramik. The main source of the income was land revenue, and it was divided, or it was fixed at 1 upon 2 to 1 upon 6 of the whole produce. Apart from this land revenue, taxes were collected from cattle herders, traders, and artisans. Gifts, those were given by the travelers who came from the other kingdoms, and they presented to the kings, that were also the source of their income. Next is the dynasties of the south, the Chalukyas, the Pandyas, the Pallavas, and the Cholas. Firstly, the Chalukyas. The Chalukya dynasty came into power around 6th century CE. Pulkeshin I established the Chalukya dynasty in around 543 CE, and this dynasty included parts of present-day Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh. However, Chalukya faced several attacks from the Rashtrakuta in the north and the Cholas in the south, but they continued to thrive until the 12th century, when their rule finally ended. Next is the Pandyas. The Pandyas were one of the three dynasties of southern India who ruled over the territories of West Tamil Nadu and Karnataka since 300 BCE. They were one of the three Movendra kings who controlled the trade routes of southern India. Their capital city was Madurai. The Pandya rulers were great patrons of art and literature. They encouraged many poets of the Sangam age, and the Sangam literature was composed in their capital city, Madurai. The famous Meenakshi temple was built by the Pandya kings. The Pallavas. The Pallava dynasty came into power in the beginning of the 4th century. By the 7th century, they were one of the most important dynasties of the southern India. Their capital was Kanchi. The Pallavas were always at war with the Pandyas and Chalukyas for the Krishna Tungabhadra Doab region. They wanted to control that region also. Many copper inscriptions of the Pallavas dynasty have been found which give us information about the Pallava generosity and details of their administration. They built many architectural structures and rock cut temples also. Next is the Cholas. The story of the rise of Chola in the south is an interesting one. The Muttiarar families were the subordinate vassals of the Pallava kings of Kanchipuram and ruled the Kaveri Delta. Vijaya, who was a descendant of the family of the Chola of Urai, captured the delta from the Muttiarar family and built the city of Thanjavur in 1850 CE. He led the foundation of the medieval Chola Empire. Raja Chola I and Rajendra Chola I were the most important rulers of the Chola dynasty. They gave political unity to southern India. Rajendra Chola I followed a policy of war and conquer. And Rajendra Chola was the most famous Chola ruler also. He further strengthened the kingdom by completing the conquest of Sri Lanka. He defeated the ruler of Bengal and then went to the Myanmar. By the beginning of the 13th century, the Chola power declined as they lost to the Pandyas. And invasions by the Delhi Sultanate rulers and the rise of the Vijayanagara Empire in Karnataka ended the whole power of the Cholas. Next is the administration of the Chola Empire. The Chola administration was one of the best during the medieval times. The detail of their administration was found in the temple inscriptions and the copper inscriptions of that period. The administration was highly centralized with a strong center, and the economy of the village assemblies was protected. The administration of the Chola were clearly structured. The empire was divided into two categories: the areas governed by the vassals chiefs and the areas directly under the king. The part of the kingdom was under the king was further structured. Firstly, Chola Empire. The whole empire was divided into mandalams or provinces. Then these provinces were further divided into vilayets or districts. And the districts were divided into two parts: villages or in cities. In villages, they were having two assemblies. First is Mahasabha and the second is Yur. Mahasabha. Mahasabha is an assembly of Brahmins. Only Brahmins took part in this assembly. And Yur, this was the assembly of non-Brahmin, means all the people can be a part of the assembly. The city, in the city and the towns, there were the guilds, there were the groups of merchants and traders. Next is the temple architecture and sculptures. The most famous temple built by the Cholas is the Shiva temple in Thanjavur, known as the Brideshwara temple or Raja temple. It was built by the first king Raja Chola I around 1009 CE, and it is a structural marvel. Its Vimana, the center part or the tower, is 61-meter high, and the dome on the top of the tower weighs 81 tons. To raise the top stone to the height, a slope was built that started at around 6.5 kilometers from the temple so that the path would not be too steep and the stone could be moved too easily. Another Shiva temple was built by Raja Rajendra Chola I at Gangai Konda Cholapuram around 1025 CE. It is also an architectural marvel. Its Vimana is 54.86 meter high. The sculpture of the dynasties in these temples were another highest of Chola art. These sculptures were mostly of Shiva and his various poses and his various incarnations. They were usually made of bronze, though few stone sculptures were also found on the walls of these temples. These temples were very rich and grants of land were given by the Chola kings for the maintenance of these temples. Many people were attached to the temple, including cooks, gardens, singers, musicians, dancers, accountants, watchmen, and others. The walls of these temples were adorned with many sculptures. Next is agriculture. The Chola administration was one of the best during the medieval times. If we look the flow of Kaveri river in this area, it branches into many sub-channels before flowing into the Bay of Bengal. These channels overflowed during the monsoon and deposited fertile soil on their banks. The channels also provided water for the cultivation of rice. Thus, the area of Tamil Nadu saw a large-scale cultivation from the 5th to the 6th century CE. Forests were cleared in some areas and in others the plateau region were leveled so that they can use that land for the agriculture. Embankments were built to prevent floods and canals were also constructed to carry water to the fields. The embankment built in Gangai Konda Cholapuram, the length of that embankment was 26 kilometer. Some artificial lakes were also made and dams are also built on the Kaveri river like the Kalanai in Tinjore to store water for irrigation. Such a systematical irrigation system helped in increasing crop production and in many places two crops were grown in a year. The farmers also paid revenue to the kings. Many inscriptions also found from the Chola period describe the revenue structure of the Cholas. The taxes paid by the peasants or the farmers to the king were usually one third of their produce, or they can pay it in the form of cash or in kind. The land was surveyed or categorized according to its yield, means how much land is fertile and on which area, on which crop can be grown. This kind of land revenue was called Kadmai. Another tax called Veti was taken not in cash or kind but in the form of forced labor. Means they give the work to the artisans or to the laborers, and the laborers do that work in free of cost as they have to pay their tax. Collection of Collection officers were appointed to collect all the revenue and taxes strictly. But the king also used to extend help to the peasants for increasing agriculture production. The kings were also very kind whenever they need, they think they should help the peasants so that farmers can produce more crops, then they always help them. Next is the invasions of the Turks, means the attacks of some Turkish rulers. There are two famous or two most powerful Turkish rulers, Mahmud of Ghazni and Muhammad Ghori. Mahmud of Ghazni. Mahmud of Ghazni looted immense wealth from the kingdom in India, and he also took people and men and women as slaves and returned to Ghazni to protect his own land from the Persian frontiers, because he never wanted to rule India, but he came here in India just to took away the wealth and to plunder the area. And he at 12 times he attacked on India just for the wealth, because he know that India, he knew that India is very wealthy country. And Al-Abruni, a chronicle of Muhammad Ghazni, writes about India in his book Kitab-e-Tarikh al-Hind. He wrote, the whole country of India is full of gold and jewels, and of the plants which grew there are those fit for making clothes, and aromatic plants, and the sugar cane, and the whole aspect of country is pleasant and delightful. Due to these things, when Al-Bruni came to India, he observed these things, he liked our country, and then he came back to his own place, and then he told all the things about India to Mahmud of Ghazni. That's why Mahmud attracted towards India, and he came to India just to plunder the wealth. Next is Muhammad Ghori. After the invasions of Mahmud of Ghazni, northern India remained relatively calm for around 150 years. But that time another Turkish ruler had established, and his name was Mahmud Ghori. His actual name was Muzuddin Muhammad bin Sam, and he ruled over Ghor, an area near Ghazni. He popularly came to be known as Muhammad Ghori, or the Muhammad of Ghor. He took over Ghazni in 1173 CE. Then he turned his attention towards India. After few unsuccessful attempts to conquer Gujarat, finally he succeeded to conquer Punjab and Sindh. In 1206 CE, the Mongols united along with the Turk rulers of Central Asia under the leadership of a genius military leader named Genghis Khan, and formed an empire that stretches from the Black Sea to Siberia in Russia and Tibet in the south. Genghis Khan was a ruthless leader who invaded many countries, including India, but he was successfully stopped by the rulers of Delhi Sultanate.